One of the biggest assets to job site productivity is the efficient movement of material and use of work tools. The mobility of the Versa Handler telescopic tool carrier, its lifting capacity and height, and the use with different attachments means you, the operator, need to be knowledgeable on the operation of the Versa Handler. Remember that these machines drive and handle differently than automobiles or other types of wheel loaders. Throughout this video, we will be using these safety alert symbols that will alert you and emphasize danger. An extremely hazardous situation exists which will result in a high probability of death or serious injury if the proper precautions are not taken. Warning: a hazard exists which can result in serious injury or death if the proper precautions are not taken. Watch for these safety alert symbols in messages. You will also see them in various manuals such as the Operation and Maintenance Manual and the Bobcat Operator's Handbook. This symbol points out actions you should avoid to reduce the potential for serious injury or death and damage to other property. Understand these instructions before you operate the machine. Inspect your machine daily, including verification that the load capacity charts, warning and instruction decals are in place and readable. Check the mirrors for proper adjustment and keep the windows clean for good visibility. The condition of the tires is important for machine stability. Look for cracks or cuts. Refer to the manufacturer's manual for information about approved tires and make sure all tires are properly inflated. Make an overall inspection for cracked welds, metal fatigue, broken parts, and fluid leaks. Never use forks that have been modified, and do not carry or lift loads that exceed the combined capacity stamped on each fork. Make sure the attachment is securely attached. Never fill the fuel tank with the engine running or while near an open flame or when smoking. Know where the fire extinguishers are kept on the work site. Check for proper fluid levels, including engine oil, hydraulic oil, and engine coolant. A walk around the work site allows you to see the conditions you will encounter during operation. Check for overhead power lines. Contact with electrically charged wires is dangerous and will result in serious injury or death. Excavations, slopes, drop-offs, underground culverts, loose backfill, and fuel supplies stored on the work site need to be identified and avoided or dealt with properly. Remember, safe operation is the responsibility of the operator. Taking charge of your safety means starting the workday with the right attitude, good physical condition, proper personal protection equipment, and a machine properly equipped and maintained for the job. Don't take chances. Your safety, as well as those around you, is at stake. Always maintain a three-point contact when entering or exiting. Grab handles and steps are provided for safety. An emergency exit from the cab is also provided. Fastening the seatbelt is not an option when operating a rough terrain forklift. It is a requirement for proper restraint. Adjust the seat and seatbelt for comfort before starting the engine. Establish a routine that you follow each time the machine is started. This routine should include ensuring that the transmission selector lever and all other control levers are in neutral. The parking brake is fully engaged, and that no one is standing between the wheels and frame, or in front of or behind the machine. The fork carriage and attachment should be resting on the ground. Adjust and clean the mirrors and windows as necessary. And check the visibility completely around the machine. Make sure the right cab window is installed for operator protection from boom movement. When a low battery cannot start the engine, follow the Operation and Maintenance Manual for recommended practices that include jump starting from another power source. Be aware that batteries can create explosive gases. In no case should the machine be pushed or pulled to be started. Hydraulic and drive functions, including steering, brakes, and boom controls, are dependent on the engine for power. Check the machine's controls to make sure they work properly before operation. Never check for hydraulic leaks when the engine is running. Pressurized hydraulic fluid can penetrate the skin, causing serious injury or death. So use a piece of cardboard when checking for leaks. Because the Versa handler has moving parts, the center of gravity moves as the boom moves forward or backward, up and down, or even when the forks or other attachments are tilted forward and backward. This is true whether loaded or unloaded.
The telescopic handler has a device which alerts the operator on the load moment. When the indicator is green, the machine has a low load moment. It comes to orange if the load moment increases. If the load moment continues to increase, for example with the boom being extended, the indicator becomes red and a buzzer sounds. When the limit is reached, the movements that will increase the load moment are stopped. A maintained two-hands operation is necessary to override the stopping of the movements. This function should be activated only in specific circumstances to allow the machine to get back within the authorized load moment range. In such occurrence, the machine does not protect you from tipping. You are solely responsible for your safety.
Surface conditions, the type of tire and tire pressure can all affect overall machine stability, along with dynamic forces such as acceleration, braking, turning, and operating on inclines. Remember, when traveling on the worksite, always drive with the boom low and fully retracted, and to always fasten your seatbelt. Allow for adequate clearance in front of and behind the machine when turning. When lifting loads, insert the forks all the way under the load to keep the load center close to the machine. Inspect the load for stability and check to see that the load is evenly distributed. Place heavier items on mixed loads nearer the fork carriage. Never lift an unbalanced load. It may be necessary to secure the load prior to lifting. Remember, when lifting loads or using attachments, refer to load capacity charts provided. Use only attachments approved by Bobcat Company. Your machine may be equipped with an attachment change feature that allows attachments to be changed without using tools. Follow the instructions for securing the attachment found in your operation and maintenance manual. In congested areas, be aware of your surroundings and keep to the right when traveling on roadways. Follow all local rules and regulations. Look in the direction of travel for bystanders, objects, and other equipment. Keep bystanders and other workers away from the boom when lifting. The boom could suddenly drop or a load could fall, causing serious injury or death. Never allow riders on the attachment or the machine. Start slowly and check the brakes and steering. Operate the machine smoothly with no jerky movements, which could cause the load to shift or fall off the attachment. Carry the load as low as possible and tilt the load backward to prevent it from shifting. Travel slowly with the boom fully retracted. Avoid sloping ground if possible and do not drive on excessively steep slopes. When ascending or descending slopes, keep the load or heavy end uphill. When unloaded, travel with the forks or attachment downhill. If you must drive on a slope, keep the load low and proceed slowly. Avoid turning on an incline, and if you must, keep the turn wide and slow. Make sure that the surface can support the full weight of the Versa handler and load. The ground must be firm and level under all four tires. Make sure that the structure you are placing the load on can support its weight. Position the machine so that the load can be placed using the load controls. Never drive a Versa handler with the boom raised to place a load. Put the machine's transmission selector lever in neutral and engage the parking brake. Use the boom's telescoping feature and forward movement to gently position the load. Always look at the load to ensure there are adequate clearances. Feather the controls by partially opening them. Never move the levers abruptly. Reverse this procedure to retract the boom, and remember to withdraw the forks slowly. Lower the boom and check that the work area is clear before you slowly back away. Under very windy conditions, extra precautions may need to be taken to secure the load. Remember, the telescopic handler should never be used as a man lift or work platform. Park the machine on solid level ground. Always place the transmission selector lever in neutral. Engage the parking brake. Lower the fork carriage. And turn the ignition switch off. Never leave the cab with the engine running or the parking brake not engaged. It's impossible to cover every situation you could encounter on the job. Be aware of the safety alert symbols and obey all warning signs to avoid injury or death. The Operation and Maintenance Manual is still the best source for information about operation and maintenance. Becoming a proficient Versa Handler operator requires knowledge, skill, and good judgment. Be that kind of operator.